Welcome back to the channel, guys. Today we're super excited to talk about the 2021 Gigabyte Aero 15 gaming and entertainment laptop. Finally, a computer that's built for gamers and creatives. I can't wait to show you the power of this thing. Make sure to like and subscribe with notifications turned on to stay in the know about more great products like this. Keep it locked here as we dive into this computer's performance and gaming benchmarks. Can it really edit 8K in real time? We're going to talk about the Wi-Fi card controversy, fan noise tests, design and build quality, review of the internals, heat tests, battery tests, some cool tips and tricks, and near the end, our overall take on this machine, listing out the top pros and cons that you need to be aware of before spending thousands of dollars on this machine. I've also read through almost 1,000 YouTube comments to make sure that I address the most common unanswered questions that people have about this computer. This model has a 15-inch 4K OLED display with an i7 processor complemented by an RTX 3080 graphics card. And if you want to get super technical, here's the more specific specs and dimensions. So starting with the design. The Aero 15 has a very simple and minimalist design. The top of the lid hosts a bright white illuminated Aero logo complemented by a strip of carbon fiber-like material on the bottom. Overall, it feels pretty sturdy with its aluminum chassis and aluminum lid. These strong materials resulted in the least amount of keyboard flex that I've ever seen in a laptop. This thing is solid. Screen flex was about average, and while the hinges felt really smooth, I feel like they were a little too loose because screen wobble was definitely above average. Part of this is due to these super thin bezels, which gave this computer an incredible 89% screen to body ratio. By the way, this screen boasts the world's first 3mm thin bezel display. Too thin for a webcam, apparently. That was awkwardly placed here at the bottom. Stick around for our test later in the video showing you how strange that looks. Stay with me though, because there's some great things that this laptop can do. The keyboard layout was pretty impressive for a 15-inch laptop. The key size and travel distance was just about as comfortable as my 17-inch Alienware laptop. They were very quiet as well, but still had a nice solid press to them. This is what it sounds like. I was actually super impressed with how they were able to engineer this keyboard to utilize every single inch of the chassis. This gave it enough room for a full-size number pad on a 15-inch laptop, unlike some laptops which just created really skinny number keys. Lenovo. The per-key RGB lighting was pretty cool, as well as were some of the animations, but one thing that was lacking was an illuminated indicator for the caps lock and numlock, something that's pretty standard on most laptops. The touchpad was a little too small for my taste, and that fingerprint sensor, while yes it's cool and worked super fast, it removed even more of the usable space from the already cramped trackpad. They unfortunately dedicated the entire backside of the laptop to exhaust ventilation and put the ports on the sides. So you would hope with all that ventilation that would mean great thermals and groundbreaking performance, right? We'll show you those results here in a bit. The ports are split pretty evenly between the left and right sides. On the left we've got an RJ45 Ethernet jack, a headphone and microphone jack, a USB 3.2 Gen 1 port, a mini DisplayPort 1.4, and the all-new HDMI 2.1, which is capable of not just 4K, but 4K at 120 Hz. That's pretty impressive. And then on the right side, we have two more USB 3.2 Gen 1 Type A ports, the all-new Thunderbolt 4 port, which is capable of up to 40 gigabits per second, 8 times faster than USB 3.1. It's compatible with USB-C and also supports 4K output as well. A lot of people are asking if you can charge the computer with it, and the answer is no. You can't. Next to that, we have a UHS-2 SD card reader capable of speeds of up to 300 megabytes per second, which is the fastest available right now. And then next to that, you've got a power port and another exhaust vent. If you're looking for a future-proof machine, that SD card reader, the Thunderbolt 4 port, and that HDMI 2.1 port should definitely put this computer at the top of that wish list. Moving on to the internals. Starting at the top, you can see we've got two 71 blade fans and 5 heat pipes, which together are supposed to result in 30% better cooling. So we'll show you those results here in a bit. Underneath that, we've got our two upgradable RAM slots there in the middle. And next to that, the infamous Wi-Fi card. I can't tell you how many comments I've seen about Wi-Fi issues with this laptop. Have they fixed it in this design? Well, it definitely appears that way. I ran a test for 24 hours straight and the results showed 0% downtime. Not once once did it lose connection. Then we've got 2 slots for SSDs. Right now we just have 1, but you can put another one right here. This SSD drive is a big deal as it's PCIe 4, which is twice as fast as the previous generation. Then we've got a massive 99 watt-hour battery sandwiched between 2 tiny little speakers. So that battery should be pretty amazing with how big it is. I was actually pretty disappointed with battery life. At 50% brightness in battery saver mode, I only got 1.5 hours HD streaming, 2 hours of web surfing, and it also took a full 2 hours to recharge back to 100%. Display quality, just wow. This is where this machine truly shines. Because it's an OLED display, the blacks just look incredible. It's X-Rite calibrated and Pantone validated, so colors just look incredible. Thermals. All this power in such a small and thin laptop, but does it get rid of the heat quick enough? Here are the CPU and GPU temperatures of each game, maxing them out at their highest preset settings. I was actually pretty impressed with how cool this machine was in turbo mode. Seriously, how does it get rid of heat that quick? This was one of the coolest, high-performing thin laptops that I've ever used. And the temperatures on the outside of the laptop were about average, with the chassis in the 90s and the keyboard in the lower 100s. Okay, so fan noise. I've heard a lot of complaints about the fan noise. Are they warranted? Sort of. The majority of the time when you're just surfing the web, they're not that loud, measuring in at only 41 decibels in quiet mode. When gaming, they're a bit louder at about 52 decibels. But if you force it to that insane full speed turbo mode, you get a fairly loud 58.7 decibels. But honestly, that mode was pretty much overkill and didn't really offer that much of a benefit over the gaming mode. Performance and gaming benchmarks. It's capable of dynamic boost, but no whisper mode, and it doesn't have advanced Optimus or a muck switch. And the maximum graphics power of this GPU is 105 watts. For all the creatives out there, we got some pretty great Puget benchmark scores. For Photoshop, we got a score of 832. For DaVinci Resolve, we got a score of 1063. And for Adobe Premiere, we got a whopping 682. So can it really edit in 4K? We brought in some 8K footage from the Puget benchmark files, and as you can see here, yes, it can. Without even down-resing the preview window, we got smooth 8K. However, 8K red footage was understandably not capable of real-time editing, and these were the blazing fast speeds of the PCIe 4 SSD card. Now, there's no undervolting and no GPU overclocking, but I was pretty impressed with how the Gigabyte software was able to intelligently choose between the modes that were best depending on what you were doing, whether it be creative mode or gaming mode. And then for Geekbench 5, we got a single core score of 1548 and a multi-core score of 8033. For Cinebench R23, we got a multi-core score of 11851 and a single core score of 1510. And for 3D Mark, we got an overall score of 9533 and a graphics score of 9719 and a CPU score of 8601. And here are the frames per second we got with each game at 1080p, maxing them out at their highest preset settings. And here are the frames per second we got at 4K with the same max settings. For the sound quality, I'm just gonna say I was pretty unimpressed. They hype it up with that fancy DTS-X Ultra word, but those tiny speakers were on the lower end of what I've been getting accustomed to with most gaming laptops. It also wasn't very loud. I tested the volume playing the best band of all time, Tenacious D, and it measured at only 87.9 decibels at maximum volume. Okay, so this webcam. I did appreciate this privacy cover right here, but I just could not get over how awkward this placement was. Well, this is probably the most unflattering and grainy webcam that I've seen on any of my gaming laptops. Wow, and look at that. When you're using the keys, your fingers actually obstruct your face. That is super awkward. If I'm typing or taking notes on a Zoom call, just a second, boss. Let me type those notes. However, because of this extra lip here on the bezel, I was comfortably able to use my external high-quality webcam with this laptop instead, without it covering up the screen in any way. Software. The Gigabyte Control Center was probably my least favorite control center that I've used on any of my gaming machines. It offered basics like CPU and GPU percentages and memory loading and disk use space. One thing I didn't like is that you had to minimize everything just to view it. You couldn't actually click on it and see it. The sorting was just kind of weird on it. Now, this AI tab right here was pretty cool though. It uses something called Microsoft Azure AI, which this computer boasts is the world's first AI laptop. You got overclocking modes for creators or gamers, or if you want things to be really silent, you can go into power saving silence mode, which makes things super quiet. Or if you're crazy, you can just go straight into turbo mode. but just setting this to AI was pretty awesome because it actively selected creator mode or gamer mode, depending on whether you opened up a game or an app. The manager was pretty standard. It had a lot of really redundant controls that you can adjust pretty much anywhere. It offered options for battery modes, for power saver mode, or balanced or high performance if you just want all the power that you can get. And then this was kind of cool, a charging policy that basically customized at what percentage you want the battery to stop charging. This has been known to prolong the overall lifespan of a battery. The fusion section was pretty cool, lets you select your different animations, but then you can go into custom and actually manually adjust and change each key based on your needs. And then device setting lets you select your different thermal fan profiles, but then deep control, this is where it gets legit. I call this J-fan mode. This is my custom Justin Tech thermal fan mode. It basically jacks your stuff up, and then in smart utilities, just completely avoid smart utilities because when it says there's a driver available, it's lying. Every time that it said there's a driver available, it was actually pointing me to the last driver instead of the most recent one. So it was basically one driver behind on what it thought was the latest. So my overall top reasons you might want to pass on this computer: number 1 is the small touchpad. Number 2 is the webcam at the bottom of the screen. Number 3, no illuminated nums lock or caps lock indicators. Number 4 was the reflective screen, which I prefer a more matted finish. And number 5 was the ports coming out the sides rather than on the back. These honestly were a lot of little things though that aren't that big of a deal individually. Many of these won't matter to most users. My favorite reasons you should buy this machine: number 1 is that amazing display with its super blacks and incredibly rich color. Number 2 is its future-proof performance. Being able to handle 8K editing means that all you creators out there will be able to chew through your 4K edits like butter. And having the fastest SSD hard drive with PCIe 4 and the fastest port with Thunderbolt 4 was just the icing on the cake of super speeds. And number 3 was the thermals. It was a little awkward having all the cords coming out the sides, but honestly, dedicating the entire backside to exhaust ventilation helped tremendously with heat dissipation. This led to low temperatures, which helped prevent throttling and maximize performance. Aside from several small nitpicking dislikes, this is an amazing laptop that'll make both creators and gamers happy. It's on the pricey side, but it is a super future-proof machine. If you don't care about creative and only gaming, I recommend that you forego the 4K version and just get the 1080p version to maximize FPS. Guys, remember every Friday I do a giveaway that randomly selects someone who's interacted with this channel. So make sure to like, comment, and subscribe with notifications turned on, and keep an eye out for that each week. Before I announce today's winner, if you're going to be getting this laptop, please remember to use my affiliate links in the description below, as I get a small commission at no cost to you for every single purchase made. I can only keep doing YouTube full time with your help. And the winner for this week is
Alan Thomas.
Thanks for watching, guys. I love you guys. God bless.